Okay, so this next part of training we'll be talking about training new volunteers. These are some minutes of the training I ran last year. We had about 30 new volunteers there, um, about 10 more experienced volunteers. So the first thing that we did was have an icebreaker. It's really important to get the team firing, enthusiastic, and really enjoying each other's relationship. So a game that we play quite often is the M&M's game. In summary, all it involves is passing around a bowl of M&M's. Everyone grabs a handful, and then they have to say an interesting fact for each M&M they have. An easy, simple icebreaker. Next, we talked about the refugee ball. We explained to volunteers what the ball is about, what we're raising money for, and who starts are, because these are very general questions that people will ask anytime you try and ask for money. We also gave a summary of the previous year's ball, so talked about how many people were there, how much money they raised, what lessons were learnt, and we used this to try and motivate the current team to to beat their numbers and fundraise more. So here, in summary, this is what we did. So we set goals for this year's ball. We set goals to have 500 guests to raise over $20,000, bring in 10 new sponsors, and start selling as early as possible. We then talked about a timeline. It's really important to give volunteers a timeline of when things are happening, just so they know when they need to do things. And then next we talked about the difficulties of event management. So events are generally a very up and down experience. So at the start it might seem very daunting, but then it should be also filled with lots of excitement about organizing it. Then anytime you sell a table, it's exciting. When sales are slow, it might be a bit hard. So yeah, but the one thing you should know is at the end of an event, it's an awesome feeling, and I guess that's why people do it. So what else? Here we talk about event management being a very fast-paced environment. Things need to be done very quickly and on time, because there are very set and certain deadlines. We talked to volunteers about anti-procrastination and just gave them a little motivational quote. So life is less stressful when things are done early. And then I gave them a bit of a story about when I was at uni. So when I was at uni, I would try to do my assignments 2 weeks in advance. A bit geeky, but it made life very stress-free. Then I talked about the law of probability. Gave another story about the Alive fundraiser. So law of probability just means the more people you ask, the more people you try, the better chance of selling a ticket. And then we talk about the rewards events. So there'll be lots of highs when we sell tickets. It's a fun journey, and it's raising money. So one thing to make sure you do when you're training volunteers is you share those stories, talk about your experiences, and just make the whole training as fun and personal as possible. So next, talk about how I run volunteers and the difference between volunteering and paid work. So I talk to volunteers about keeping things fun, working in a team, communicate heaps, to make the whole kind of journey as enjoyable for each other. What's next? Improvement and development. So this kind of leads on to the next part, but what we did was we went through a few drills on how to sell, and I mentioned to volunteers that it's very important to be open-minded and be open to a bit of constructive criticism and aim to continue improving and developing. So here, before we did the drills, we gave them some selling points. So some selling points were, we talk about the entertainment on the night, the good cause, all the fun that people had last year, and we also taught volunteers to think about who they're marketing to. So talking to corporates and businesses is very different to talking to not-for-profits. Cool. Other things is volunteer incentives to sell. So last year we gave volunteers an offer, so they get $5 off for every raffle they sold, a free ticket if they sold a table, and yeah, they get discounted tickets if they sell more. So yeah, we did a good sales drill, and basically it got people standing in two lines trying to sell to each other on a one-on-one basis, and then continue rotating trying to sell to each other. And once you've had a bit of practice, it was just a lot easier. And what else? One thing we will talk about in separate training is emotional selling. So rather than telling people it's $150 at the start, at the end, tell them at the start and then give them lots of benefits, so you leave them on an emotional high. And then after that, we basically had a barbecue launch. So we had all the volunteers having a bit of food, talking to each other, and mingling. And yeah, and then afterwards we delegated some responsibilities. So we set team leaders for different selling groups, and also set tasks for next week. And yeah, make sure you exchange contact details. And that's about it.